Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode at the Warehouse Underground podcast, Real Talk, where warehouse, DC, and FC professionals of all levels around the globe. I'm Ben, I'll be your host of the show, and joining me on the show today is Chris Hamley. He's a managing partner at the Brecham Group, Precision Supply Chain Operations, Achieve Excellence, Reject Mediocrity. Now, these guys have been on the podcast circuit recently. I do follow some other well-known podcasts in the warehouse and supply chain industry, so I've seen some of their stuff. So I'm really excited to talk with him myself because he's very comfortable in the world of operations like I am. So the Brecham Group has been in hundreds of DCs across the country as consultants, really learning how to improve operations at all different sites of all shapes and sizes. So I'm excited to learn more about Chris and the Brecham Group and talk all about leadership and really managing performance inside facilities at all levels, that what they do. So with that, I will bring him onto the stage right now. Chris, sir, thank you very much for joining the Warehouse Underground podcast. How are you today, man?
I'm living the dream. Thanks for having me, Ben. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. Now, I mentioned it in the beginning. I appreciate that you and the Brecham Group are on the podcast circuit right now. I love that because I love when people from the industry, in the industry, around the industry, put it out there. Right? Like the more people that put it out there, what they do, the goodness, the better off the industry is going to be. And you and the Brecham Group are certainly leading the charge on that. I respect that a lot. And so obviously, thank you for coming on my show, but I really appreciate you just doing that in general for the benefit of the industry. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. You know, a ton of what we do is really just focused around education more than anything else, I'm sure we'll get into it, but I grew up in the industry. I started out loading trucks a really long time ago, and it seemed like at every turn you're having to go out and learn and create on your own kind of thing. And we got to this idea that, well, why does everybody have to reinvent this stuff? Let's just talk about it, right? Let's really turn this into a training conversation or an education kind of format, right? That, hey, let people talk and just share ideas. And here's how we've addressed this in the past. And that's the premise of what we do.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be a secret. And I've said this before on other episodes, and maybe you agree with me. Sometimes in the warehousing supply chain industry, it can feel like, what am I supposed to do? What do I do? Where do I find this? Where's the book on this? Where's the textbook? It's a little bit like, it feels like hidden knowledge sometimes to people, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, there is proven methods that have worked all around there. So, I mean, you see it that way? I mean, how do you learn this stuff? Where do you learn this stuff? And now there's more avenues to get it.
I think there are a couple of things, right? I mean, there's a conditional thing first that starts with, we kind of all grew up in operations, right? And the first thing is we progressed from a supervisor to manager to ops manager, something, right? And so what ends up happening is we become a little bit siloed of inside the organization or the few organizations we've been a part of, and don't really have view of the broader world to make sure that, or to be able to see that maybe, hey, everybody else has had to solve this problem also. So there's a little bit of, we're sheltered in some degree, right? I think the other piece of that though is that, at the end of the day, when we're having to go out and develop and try to learn things, it's a part-time job for us because our full-time job is running the operation, right? So it's all ad hoc and it's how much time can you devote to it. So there's not a lot of opportunities to go out and explore either, right?
Yeah, well, I like to use a lot of car analogies. And when you want to do an upgrade on your car, you take it into the shop and you leave it there for 4 days. They do whatever they're going to do. A modification of the engine or tinted windows or whatever. But distribution ops is not that way. It's like you do those things as at the same time that you're driving down the road in your car, and that makes it way gnarlier.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
of a lift. So let me ask this to you, because I follow the Brecham Group on LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of your posts on LinkedIn. I've been to your website, and there's a lot of different things on there, but it looked like one of the common themes, or I don't want to say bread and butter, but there was a concept that I saw there that I've heard you talk about, and that is this theme of precision supply chain operations. Can you just talk to the audience about, kind of what exactly does that mean? What is precision supply chain operations from your seat and how you see it and your experience throughout the industry?
Yeah, really, it comes down to this: is how do you get the most out of what you have, right? And if that's a process, if it's a group of people, whatever that is, right? How do you get the absolute most out of it? And, you think about what our work is. We do the same task thousands of times every day, right? We pick a unit into a box, we ship a box, something, right? And what that means is, though, that to get better at this, we have to be good at those minor components. So we have to think about that and then be very precise in how we go do things, and balance, the people side of it and the leadership component to make people want to go do that. Have the methods and processes in place so that they can be good at it. And then finally, talk about, okay, what's the end result that we achieve and the KPIs and whatnot. And all those things have to come together to really get precise in what we do and have that level of precision you need to be really great, regardless of the technology or anything else you have in the operation.
Yeah. And I remember when I was a young manager, I heard of another person in the building that I was working in that did not get promoted. They went up for some type of promotion board and they didn't get it. And I remember asking around, and it came back to me. The reason they didn't get promoted, what they said was they came to work. And I was like, I don't really understand. I was so young at the time. I didn't understand what they came to work meant. And it basically meant that, like, they were just doing the repetitive act over and over again, kind of going through the motions, but they weren't trying to get better. They weren't looking at things at a different angle. They weren't analyzing their op. And so I feel like maybe that was an early stage, an early way of saying, like, no, precision supply chain operations is much different than just coming to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Work isn't going to move the needle.
Yeah, and we all know those folks, right? We see them in the industry at times. People who show in, they clock in every day and they do a decent job, but they're not moving the needle necessarily, right? And what precision is about is somebody has to take the charge and start thinking about their operation and, okay, how do I get good at this? How do I think about, a different way to approach this problem? Something is that catalyst for change to go be better, right?
Yeah. And I think too, and I would like to know your thoughts on this, it can be a little bit tempting, I think, for managers to sometimes fall into that rut of just being comfortable, kind of doing the bare minimum, because it's a stressful career. And so sometimes it takes extra energy to go the extra mile. So if you're like a senior leader out there, or you're a general manager, or you're a senior director, you just got to know that sometimes you need a little bit of an external push, right? An external stimulant that can kind of come in and spark your team, because the tendency is to just kind of settle in if you're not careful. And when you think about that, true.
Yeah, there's generally a catalyst when you see large improvements in organizations, right? There is a person, a group, somebody that's come in and really sparked that interest, that desire to go get better. I was actually in a facility last week and had the opportunity to talk to the frontline leaders, and we spent some time walking around the building and looking at their process. And the comment that stuck with me was, as we were leaving, the facility manager comes to me and says, I'm re-energized about going out after the visit.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what this is all about, is somebody has to challenge the status and make us remember that we can get better, right? No matter who we are or where we're at, what we're doing, right? There's always opportunity to go do something different. Sometimes somebody just needs to point that out and kind of point in the right direction.
Yeah, I would think that would be pretty exhilarating to sort of feel that difference, feel that change. Because I'm going to use working out as an example. And I'm kind of guilty of this now in my mid-40s. So just do the same workout all the time because I'm just trying to stay fit and stay in shape. Sure. But that's not necessarily making me stronger, right? Like if you do the same workout every time, you're not shocking your body, you're not growth, and your body just sort of gets used to doing that and very efficient. And it sounds like that's the kind of scenario you ran into there with that employee, is they got a new workout, right? They got a new shock, and all of a sudden they felt new things and they were energized again. And I really love that. So I need to work on my fitness after this show, is exposing my weaknesses to the audience.
change the circuits up a little bit, right?
Yeah, you just got to change the circuit. So I think that's a good thing. So now let me ask this to you, because anytime I get a chance to talk with people that have been around the country in lots of different sites, I always am curious about this, because that gives you a perspective that most people in this industry don't have. I mean, it's very common. Hey, I work inside the four walls of my facility. Maybe I get promoted out. Maybe I go an away team. But in general, people see 5, 6, 7 sites kind of in their career, not hundreds. I mean, no one is going into hundreds of sites like you are. So do you think that, I mean, I would think that a lot of times when you get called in, it's because somebody wants to improve their site, they want to improve their operation, they want to accelerate it, and maybe they have some leadership shortfalls. So have you seen that leadership shortfalls are sort of the same way throughout the entire network, no matter where you go? I mean, do you see common themes that begin to arise all the time? Or is it unique and different according to which site that you go into? And you mentioned earlier, like, hey, I'm a high performer, I moved up, I promoted, but now I struggle in a leadership role. That's pretty common in the industry. Yeah. What do you think about that in general? Because you've got a unique seat that other people do not have in a perspective, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, you think about every client we go to, and I hate to say this out loud, but everybody we go to seems to think their problem is unique, right? Oh, yeah. And the reality is every organization has a unique combination of problems, but they're generally all the same basis of issues, right? And there are a handful of things that, particularly from a leadership perspective, that we see that are really easy fixes, right? That, you know, and I'll bucket them into a couple of things. One is that it's the attention of the leadership team, right? We can't forget as leaders that our primary objective is to empower our employees to go do more, be better, right? Hit their own career goals, whatever that is. Too often we forget that, and we spend more time worried about reports or making sure reviews are done on time. I'm not saying that's not important, right? But we forget to go to the floor and actually help people be better, right? Another issue that we often see is that people who were good or really good individual contributors, right, as they went through their career, don't necessarily have some of the tools to go lead that group through through change, right? Or just day-to-day operations. You think about things like, we talk about the circle of accountability, and that is, how do we hold people accountable for results? And accountable is not a negative connotation. That's not about performance management. It's simply that we need you to do this. Did you do it? And here's what the result of that was, right? We talk about the circle of accountability. You've got to define the process or define the expectation. You have to audit it. You have to follow up on it. If you don't do those 3 steps, you're not ever going to get better. It's amazing to me how many leaders don't understand that. They're really good at saying, hey, go do this. And they walk away from it, and half the group does it and the other half doesn't do it, but there's no repercussion. And over time, what happens is fewer and fewer people do it, right?
Yeah. I think accountable is not necessarily the same thing as responsible for or to be blamed for results. So I think sometimes people think about that, but that's not necessarily what accountability is. And I think you're right about, hey, you were a strong performer, you were a contributor, you moved up into a leadership role. And then sometimes the person who is supposed to be training them in that leadership role also had that same path.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, it just kind of becomes this circle, this cycle. Yeah, where you're not really in a position to really train this person in the things they need to know, because you didn't get the training when you came up. You just kind of learned it the hard way. And I think that's where somebody like the Brecham Group is perfect, right? Like fit for that, because you're unbiased. You've got a fresh set of eyes. You're an outsider. You're not an outsider of the industry. You're very well versed in it, but you're an outsider in that particular site. So you're not. Right. You don't hold any of those same biases. I mean, is that a fair statement, or am I?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I started out loading trucks, and I got promoted because I loaded trucks really well, right? I was fast. I was reasonably accurate, and there was nothing about me loading trucks really well that prepared me to be the supervisor of the area, but I got promoted. Right. And when I got promoted, to your experience, your comment, I got trained by another supervisor who had their own view of the world. There wasn't a really formal, do these things kind of component. Right. So I started just mimicking people who were good. Right. I've shared the story a number of times about, we used to have a flip chart at the beginning of shift every day. They ranked all the supervisors, and here are the best ones and the worst ones every day.
Oh.
Right. I learned early on it's good to be at the top of the list and not the bottom of the list. Right.
Good to be a winner.
Exactly. So I just started mimicking what the guys at the top of the list did. Right. I didn't know why I was doing it, but hey, it worked for them. So now I'm going to try it. Right. And I learned that way, but unfortunately, not everybody has that level of visibility to performance and how an organization feels about you. As an industry, we're really, you talked about getting into hundreds of DCs. One of the common things we see is we're not great at holding the leadership team accountable or measuring how they're performing or helping them. You get an annual review that says, oh, you met expectations or whatever that was, right? But at the end of the day, there's not a scorecard really as to what that supervisor contributed. So without that scorecard, it's hard to say, am I doing well or not? And ultimately, you've got to have some way to help them elevate and get better and create the demand to go be better, right?
Yep. And I found, and you probably agree with me on this, and I think it's leading me into the next portion, but in general, most people in the industry, there's some bad ones every now and then, just like there are in every industry. Okay. Mm-hmm. But most people in general want to do a good job, right? They want to do a good job. They want to be promoted. They want to, no one just wants to come to work and be crap, So, but if they don't know what good looks like, and no one in their chain of command or their hierarchy knows what good looks like either, then they're just sort of stuck in this just middle ground, and they're never going to really fulfill their whole potential. So what do you think? Do you think there's people out there that just are happy just being crappy, or in your experience, or the people just need the roadmap and then they can travel it?
I use the line all the time that 95% of the population wants to do the right thing, wants to be good at something. You just have to tell them what it is. Everybody likes to win, right? And, you think about supervisors and hourly employees, everybody wants to be better to some degree. They want to feel like they contributed, right? Now, there is 5% that are the outliers in that conversation. And everybody I talk to has an example. Somebody comes to mind as who that outlier is, right? But at the end of the day, everybody wants to get there. We just have to do a better job of telling people what it is. Now, the trick is that it's how do you help them understand what, to your point, what good looks like? What should be the gold standard, the bar that we're trying to measure to? And that's where a lot of people fall down, is they don't even understand what the goal is, and therefore it's hard to articulate how to get there even, right?
Yeah, I think it's like the bell curve. Any operation I've ever been in is just the bell curve. You have some people on both ends of the spectrum of the bell curve that are absolutely terrible or absolutely amazing. But in general, most people are in the middle and they kind of want to do a good job, and they can easily slide to either side of that bell curve unless they're given, a push and a guidance to go to the right side. We
call that discretionary effort. So one of the things we talk about as leaders is our job in a DC as a leadership team is to solicit or elicit more discretionary effort out of the team. How do we get people to go do more, not because they have to, but because they want to?
Yep, that's right. And that makes the difference.
Absolutely.
Right. The operations out there that are really hitting their numbers, it is not because every single employee is hitting the minimum. If every single employee is hitting the minimum at your site and you're the ops manager there, you're not going
to do well. Absolutely.
Yeah. And most people know that. So, all right. So you've got this concept on your website. I'll bring up a photo right now, and it is called the performance paradox, which sounds very Back to the Future, right? Like back to the paradox. They talk about Back to the paradox and Back to the Future, but yours is different. So I'm like dating myself there with my age, but I love Back to the Future, as everybody does. If you haven't seen Back to the Future, just go watch Back to the Future.
Oh, it's a great movie. I haven't seen it in a few years, but it's a great movie.
But so, you've got this concept on your website called performance paradox, but can you tell me, like, what does that mean? I mean, what's the performance paradox? I assume it is like some type of gaps in operations, but where do those happen? How do you solve them? What's the theme of performance paradox all about?
It really goes back to what we were just talking about. It is that the performance paradox is really rooted in the idea that organizations talk about getting better and they want to get better, but they don't know how to get between here and there.
Yeah.
Right. It's that, and what ends up happening is you get stuck in just more of the same every day. Right. And a lot of times it's really coming from a handful of things. It's that I'm not thinking about the root cause of my problems. I'm worried just about my world, not necessarily what things influence me. Right. It is about, what do I know? We talk about skills and competency, but really a lot of it is understanding what good is. What could I be doing? Not just what am I doing? Right. And then finally, it's again, going back to the KPI discussions, like, what am I measuring against? How do I know if I'm getting better or not? Right. We all do a pretty good job of tracking employee performance, and we do a pretty good job of tracking building performance, but departments and functions and leaders inside and in the middle ranges of that building, right, we don't do a great job to help you understand, am I getting better or not? Right.
Yeah. And this is the thing that causes burnout, I think.
Absolutely.
This can be a cause of burnout. Hey, I'm working hard. I am trying my very best, but I'm still not hitting the number. Like, this is more and more stressful for me. And you can come in and look and go, well, you need to take your foot off the brake. Like, look at all this friction that you have in front of you that you don't know how to solve, or you're not identifying. Like, it's great to work hard and everything, but in this industry, like, working smarter is a huge part of it, right? Like, reducing friction and getting proper alignment will make that hard work go way farther. I mean, you can get by in this career with hard work, but it's going to burn you the heck out.
It makes for a long day, right? A long career, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you a story. I took over an organization one time, and the first couple of days I was at the organization, I was just observing, right? Watching leadership team. We had a leadership team of about 135 people or something, and was really seeing what they spent their day doing. And all of them, to a person, spent all day, every day, getting their asses kicked by people at corporate about failures that the facility was having, right? And at the end of day two, I thought, this is crazy, because we spend all day listening to people complain about our performance and no time actually going out and changing. And tomorrow, all we're doing is just reacting to the things we failed at today, right? So what we did was I went to him and said, hey, I'll make a deal with you, is that I will take all of these conversations. You don't have to sit on another one of these, right? But, and I use the analogy that it looks like it kind of sucks right now, right? It sucks to work. You work hard. You're working extended hours because you're on calls 5 or 6 hours a day, getting your asses kicked, right? And then you got to go out and make the operations happen around that, right? So it looks like it sucks. So here's what we're going to do is I need everybody to go out, and in return for not having to sit on these calls anymore, I need each of you to go out and find one thing that's going to make you suck less tomorrow.
There you go.
And I don't care what it is, right? Just go out and do it. Right. And I want you to come back and tell me what it was and what the result was. Did you do it or not? Right. What was the impact? If it was good, keep doing it. If it was bad, stop, move on to something else. And every day I'm going to ask you for one way that we're going to suck less tomorrow. Right. And in the meantime, I'll keep taking the beatings. Right. And
yeah. And it's all connected. Right. Like, it's all connected. Like, the HR engagement surveys and places like that are terrible. And it's like, this isn't an HR problem. There's nothing that HR can do to improve the engagement. Like, this is the problem with just the ops, right? The ops flow. Like, we suck too bad. Like, we got to figure out ways to get it better. And then everything will improve. Service metrics,
right. We talk about people, service, profit, right? We have to be good at all three phases of the game, right? To have a functioning operation. Right. We've got to make sure our people are taken care of, that they like coming to work, they have all the things they need to be successful. We've got to deliver service to the business or to our customer base, and we have to do it profitably at the end of the day. And if we are missing on any one of those, we're going to fail eventually.
Yep. No, I agree with you on that. I understand the performance paradox. I think that you put a name to something that a lot of people have probably thought about and understood, and it's definitely spot on. I agree with you on that 100%.
Thank you.
Now, Chris, let me ask you this, kind of shifting gears a little bit more towards the business side of it. I mean, you get a call from a site leader or an organization or operation, and they want you to come in and help them. Boom, timeline. I mean, it seems like a lot of times they may want immediate results, right? Like, how fast can you turn this around? But what's a realistic timeline? I mean, how long does it normally kind of take you to get in, learn, observe, and put in your processes and kind of turn things around with a team at a site?
Well, I'm going to start with this, is that here's my joke, and this is actually my sales pitch, is we're horrible consultants, actually, but we're really good subject matter experts, right? And that's what it is, that we've all grown up in the DC. We all understand, everyone on our team, most everyone on our team has been at least an ops manager in an organization somewhere. So we understand how an operation works, right? So what we do is we come in initially and do what we call an evaluation. And an evaluation can range from a week to 6 weeks, depending on the complexity of the operation, what's going on. And coming out of that, we build a roadmap. And our roadmaps are usually 90 days. So how do we go from where we're at to serviceable? That's not perfect, but how do we get better at people, service, and profit in 90 days? Right. And what we see is that usually we start seeing those gains happen in the 4 to 6 week mark, right? And then it becomes repeatable and sustainable by the end of the 90-day period. And all we're doing is really just teaching people about, here's how to think about doing your job. Here's some tools to use to get better at doing your job. And ultimately, you build that framework around KPIs and accountability and some leadership principles and get people better. And by the time you leave at 90 days, we actually built a glide path for service and cost structure and all the measurements that we have to take to or make for the project. And ultimately, we can show you that, hey, when we turned this on and enabled this and trained on that, you can see those jumps in productivity, so that by the end of that 90-day period, we can prove the results you got.
Yeah. And then I would think, you put them on a new path, and then it can take on a life of its own, I think, after you leave.
Absolutely. Because you're giving tools, right? We're really teaching people about how to think about it and the tools. And what we see is that while you see this initial uplift in that first 90-day period, you continue to refine it because the tools and processes stay consistent. Right. I just change the focus. I go work on different problems. Instead of the really big rocks, I can start working on medium-sized rocks then that are my problem.
Yep. No, I love that. I mean, you give somebody a fish, or you can teach them how to fish. You teach them how to fish, they just go on forever and perpetuity.
Absolutely.
I think that's the way to do it. So now tell me about your downloadable course, because I you have a new course online. You gave me access to it, by the way. So I've seen your presentations in that. It's very cool.
So let me ask this: what did you think of the course? And before I tell you what it's about, because we might edit all this out.
Yeah, I think any time that people get a chance to offer their perspective, and that perspective is earned and developed through trial and error over the years, like yours has been, that is always worth its weight in gold, right? And so I think, just bringing people into the fold, letting them see it's like the questions that they ask, how you relate it to them at their level in a way that they can understand. The concepts are sort of higher level concepts, I think, but they're presented in a way that is very digestible, I think, to the crowd and the audience that is watching that. And they'll walk away being much more versed in warehousing and supply chain in a way that they cannot get in any other form. I mean, obviously they can come to the Warehouse Underground, Chris. They can sign up for the Warehouse Underground. They can get all that stuff there too. But also
here's another form. Yes. So we've got a course. I thank you for that. We've got a course called Precision Supply Chain Operations, and what it is just that it's about 8 hours of me talking to a classroom of operators about here is how to think about KPIs in your operation, right? The things that matter. Here are a way to implement or a way to manage to those, and really kind of talking about kind of frontline leadership techniques that you could use to be better at it, right? And it's a lot of, I'd say there's some conversation around the theory and the why things happen, right? But then more practically, just what to do about it, what action to go take. Right?
Yep. And I think here's how I see it, because I was young in this industry once, just like we all were. And two things. One, if you know more than your boss knows, then that is helpful to you and your career, right? And so if there's a way to get that, if there's somebody out there that has a course, they have a lecture, that I can absorb all this knowledge, and now maybe I'm a little bit smarter than my boss, that can help me. And two, a lot of the junior managers out there, no matter what they say, are afraid sometimes to raise their hand and say, I need help, or I don't understand this, or I don't know this. Can you teach me? Some people do. Some people are very good about that. So if you're not that type of person, if you're not comfortable like raising your hand and doing all that, here is a perfect way for you to get basically that same information that you would be getting from an ops or a senior ops or a GM, but you're getting it without having to, I don't want to say expose yourself, because that's not a good word, but you kind of getting it without having to do that.
Yeah, it's a low risk conversation.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, you don't have to worry about all that. So, all right, let me ask this question. Your opinion, your opinion. We're going to talk industry opinion now, and we talked a little bit about this before the show. What do you think about the overall state of warehouse distribution center industry right now? Because there's a lot of different opinions out there depending on who you ask. And how do you see it changing and growing over the next 5 to 10 years? And there's no right or wrong answer. I always curious as what different people's opinion are. But some people think, nope, automation's taking over, robotics we're going to have blacked out warehouses in 5 years. There's going to be nobody in there. I disagree with that. But then other people say, nope, that's never going to take hold. So what do you think? I mean, do you think it's a good industry to get into and be in? Is it good for a career, or would you try to steer people in a different direction?
So, I've been in the industry. This is my 37th year, just for the record. Right? I started out really young at UPS, just for the record. I was 6.
Yeah. Tricky math, folks.
Tricky math. Yeah. Just don't add that. But for me, the industry is an amazing place to work, right? And I think it's an amazing place for me. It's been an interesting journey because, one, the diversity of people and the set of skills you have to develop to be good in this industry is amazing, right? I don't know another profession that you have the range that we have in supply chain operations. And I don't know how many people actually recognize or take advantage of that sometimes, right? First of all. Secondly is that, when I got into it early on, I actually met a friend of mine who, I've known him 30 years now, but he had been a very well-educated individual on a piece of technology and manufacturing, right? And he'd spent a decade prior to me meeting him in that space. He'd gotten laid off and came into supply chain, right? And while he was there in that manufacturing environment, one of the things that he and I used to always talk about were that, no matter where you're at in the world, we have to move product around, right? Yep. Now, contents of the box might change, right? But at the end of the day, boxes are still flowing. Unlike whether or not manufacturing's onshore, offshore, whatever that is, right? Those become more volatile careers in a lot of ways than supply chain. My joke has always been, I don't always care what's inside the box. The box still has to move, right?
Right. It's a widget.
Exactly. So from a stability standpoint, it's an amazing place as well. It's been my experience. Now that doesn't mean every company's stable. It doesn't mean that every role is stable.
Yeah.
But as an industry, our skills are very transferable. Right.
Yeah. And I think, and I've said this to people before when they ask me about it, there are a lot of people out there coming up in society that feel like, and I remember feeling this way too when I was coming up, like, I'm kind of a generalist. I'm not necessarily, I'm not really an expert in this or that. I'm kind of like a little bit good in a lot of different things. And if that's you, if you have that, this industry can be extremely rewarding for you, because that is a valuable skill to have in this career.
I might even just rephrase that a bit. I think the people who do really well in our space, right, have a couple of skill sets, right? One is kind of a natural leadership style, right? Because we've spoken before about the need of leaders and what we do, because we're a people-based organization or operation, and we need to go get people to respond to us, right?
Yep.
The other thing, though, is that we tend to be really good problem solvers. Right? And people who excel in this industry can figure out their way through a problem. Even though we don't have all the knowledge, we're not experts in something, we can be generalists because we're better at problem solving and understanding the situation and working our way through it, right? I use the joke all the time, our role is really adapt and overcome, right?
Absolutely.
As an operator, it's deal with what's in front of you and overcome it, right? That's problem solving skill at its finest.
100%. I mean, the variables that happen on any given shift, on any given facility, I think would just be mind blowing to people that are not in the industry. People that are in the industry, they don't even think about it anymore because they're just so used to it. Yeah. They don't even realize that ability to troubleshoot and problem solve and flex is a huge skill, because it's just baked into the cake of what they do on any given shift.
Right.
So
now you asked this about the state of the industry, right? To start this, I would agree. I don't see automation in a holistic view of an operation for years to come, right? And there are a lot of reasons for that. But one of the things that we do see happening though is that automation projects have a better ROI on them today than they did 5 years ago. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. Price points have come down, whatnot, right? But the other piece of that is that as an industry in a whole, we've seen a decline in productivity, right? Now, you can blame generational questions or workforce and all kinds of things, right? I don't personally subscribe to that, because I would guarantee if you wouldn't talk to our parents, they would say the same things about our generation as well.
Oh, yeah.
What I do believe, though, is that we as a leadership generation don't do the same things that maybe other generations have done either. We've lost some of the fundamental skills out there. And personally, I see that a lot in terms of we rely too much on reports and technology and whatnot, right? I talked to one of our managing directors a lot, actually, that I used the line that he'll come to me and say, well, we don't have a report that tells us that. Right. I'm like, hey, dude, you and I grew up in a generation we didn't have reports, but we could figure it out, right? So if your job depended on you figuring this out today, could you do it? Well, yeah, then go do it. Right.
Yep.
And the mindset is that we're often waiting on information instead of going and finding it and figuring out the problem. And that's the real problem, is if we're not getting the performance out of a group that we need, we're waiting for a labor standards report. We are waiting to, for new hires to show up, or we start progressive discipline instead of going out and just talking to people and figuring out how to lead them through that process.
Yeah, I remember. So when I first started my career at Amazon, I worked at Amazon FC. I've said this on the show before, and there were so many metrics. And if there's Amazonians that are listening to this, they'll know that the temptation is, as manager, you just sit there at your computer and you just keep hitting refresh. They just keep hitting refresh to see the new measurement of their shift, and that's their day. And that's not good, right? Like you should be out, you should be dry. Like that's just a scoreboard. But the plays that you make on the field is what shows up on the scoreboard, not just refreshing the scoreboard. I never did that, of course, but all the other crappy managers were the ones that
those everybody else. And I agree, right? You can go out and control your own destiny or be a victim of the results, right? And I always chose to go control my own destiny.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris, man, where can people find out more about you now? Now you're all over LinkedIn, you're on the podcast circuit. How do you want people to come find you if they're interested in learning more about you and the Brecham Group?
So connecting with the Brecham Group on LinkedIn, we would appreciate that. We are actually looking for followers, right? My son's only job in life, my son's in our business, his only job in life is to drive our followers up. So we'll see how that works out. But if you want to follow us on LinkedIn, that'd be awesome. If you want to talk to us, feel free. You reach out to us via our website at brechamgroup.com. And we're always happy to talk, right? Doesn't always have to be, in the vein of paying us to do something. If you just want to chat, we're always happy to just chat. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Chris, man, I loved having you on the podcast. I love chatting with ops folks just like you. I mean, it's just always makes for a great conversation. I love what you're doing at the Brecham Group. I love what you're doing online and you're out there. I just, like I said in the intro, I respect it a lot. I mean, you're just putting a ton of great information out there for all the folks to benefit from. I really hope that they do. And I'm a big fan. So I appreciate you appearing on the podcast again.
Thanks for having me, Ben. It's been a pleasure.
You got it. Take care, Chris.
You too.
All right. Thanks, Chris Hamley, again of the Brecham Group, for appearing on the podcast. Fantastic conversation with him. You should definitely check them out. Follow them on LinkedIn. See their other podcasts that they've been on. Great guys, great group, putting a lot of good information out there in the industry. Also very personable people to talk to too. I really enjoy that. Very, very good group. As the Warehouse Underground goes, please sign up for the community if you've not done so. We have 330 people that have signed up for the community at thewarehouseunderground.com. In there, we have message boards, networking, information share. We've done some live shows that you can play in there, and we have some more live shows coming down the pipe in the future. So sign up for thewarehouseunderground.com, become a member, all free at the site there. And also, please check out the other show that I do, the spinoff to this podcast, if you will. It's called The Tiger Team Show with my co-host, Jordan. It is all about life in warehouses and distribution centers and fulfillment centers, but it has a sarcastic, witty, humorous slant to it. So lots of good stories and cathartic relief out there. If you're so inclined, check that show out today with the Tiger Team. We think that you will like it. As this podcast goes, I will see you next week for another episode. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.